I absolutely adore Horizon Chase Turbo, and especially its Senna DLC. Oh, that is such a chef's kiss. Oh, love it. I've been patiently waiting for Horizon Chase 2 to come out from its Epic Store exclusive on PC. It now has, and it's arrived on console, and this is the PS5 version on your screen. In a world where every story game is trying to be like, but I'm open world and I'm also a racer, but hey, we've got co-op and it's always online and it's this, that and the other, and I've got a season pass that goes on and expects you to log in daily for a million years. There's something about the simplicity of Horizon Chase 2 for the vast majority of its gaming experience that just says floor it and hang on for dear life, and it brings such a gleeful smile to my face that this game really hones in, just as the original did, on speed, precision, and making you feel absolutely glorious as you hurtle through a Technicolor yawn of graphical beauty and heavy synthwave soundtracks to get towards that finish. Everything about games like Enduro, Chase HQ, perhaps Road Rash and Skitchin if you removed the hanging onto the back of cars and beating everyone up with baseball bats element to it. It's that weaving through your opponents trying to get to the front whilst being really precise. That's what Horizon Chase 2 nails, and it nails so well. This game is divided up into two very distinct styles of driving, or challenges. The vast majority of this game is a simple race. 2 to 5 laps, I would say, for most courses. There are some courses that are just like a rally event, I guess, where you're going point to point. But the vast majority of them are lapped races. And you've got 19 AI opponents with various different cars, all trying to boost their way to the finish. You'll need to manoeuvre your way through them, not try to smash into them, because that will slow you down. And then also hang on for dear life around the tight corners that go on, evoking that 90s motorway style gameplay, as I would call it, where the open road was just in front of you and it would twist and turn, and you kind of didn't feel like you was going around a 3D environment. Horizon Chase 2 emulates that by having a beautiful array of different locations for you to race around. And whilst you only visit 6 locations in World Tour, each race inside there is a unique track and a unique style. And so you'll be in like the mountains versus the city in Tokyo and Hokkaido, for example. And then you go up and race around a mountain with a volcano erupting in the middle of it. And that's just in one of those locations. And then you can go off to Brazil, for example, or Thailand. And many of the tracks then have day to night or night to day transitions, and they're really well put together. So like there's one where you're approaching a huge sports stadium, and then because it's turning into night, all of the lights in the stadium just go choosh, and you're like, yeah, as you're going through it. And then there's other weather effects, and although they don't affect the handling of the car, which is a negative really, to be honest, seeing that rain come down and having to deal with the visual change, or maybe it's snowing, or maybe you're in the desert region in America and there's a massive windstorm so you can't really see far in front of you. There's another one where in the final level of the game in Japan, you race around a mountain that then explodes into an erupting volcano and you've got like fire sparks going across the screen. It's really well done, and done in a subtle cinematic way, because you're still speeding around everywhere at such breakneck speeds that it's just all kind of kaleidoscoping around you like a Technicolor vomit. And it's what brings the grin. What also helps that is just how responsive your cars are. Now, there's a variety of different cars and they do have different stats, but those stats aren't really distinguished enough. But you will have things like top speed, handling, and acceleration changes. And it's only on a couple of the cars you might have to feather the throttle slightly on really tight hairpins, but it does mean that some cars do go faster on the straighter tracks where you can hang on to every corner very easily versus one that's got loads of back-to-back hairpins, because you might end up getting wrong-footed over time. I would have liked to have seen more variety in those cars though, and having their stats even more towards top speed versus acceleration versus handling, because I think that would have made the game feel a bit more varied over time. My other kind of negative around the general racing is that the races are quite easy. I was able to win almost every single race the very first time that I tried it. But where the difficulty of this game comes into play is in the time trial mode, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. Time trials are tactically interesting because as you go around the track, you aren't necessarily asked to follow the racing line the best way possible, because you have to collect these time coins that reduce a second on your time trial clock. And there's so many of them that you're zigzagging around the track trying to collect them, whilst also keeping an eye out for tons and tons and tons of boost pads to make you go faster and go further forward. And if you want the platinum top trophy on the leaderboard to therefore get 100% for an area, therefore get the achievements and eventually the platinum trophy, you're going to need to master these. And it's those that I spent time restarting and trying to really aim for that platinum trophy time trial threshold so that I could then be like, I'm a boss. Alongside that, the other kind of big positive though is that Horizon Chase 2 has no stutter. And this was my main complaint with Horizon Chase Turbo. I'd bought that on PlayStation 4, and occasionally I would get tiny little freezes for minuscule seconds, and it really annoyed me. And there's none of that in Horizon Chase 2. This game is buttery smooth, and again, it just makes everything just feel so much more fun to play. That buttery smooth carries over into multiplayer, and you can have 2 to 4 player local multiplayer split screen, and you can take it online too. The interesting thing with going online though is that I found the logging in to getting online would quite often crash Horizon Chase 2, and I would say there's about a 1 in 4 chance every time you open up this game it will crash when opening currently, because it's trying to log in to wherever it is to show that you're online, and yeah, it doesn't seem to like it. And then leaderboards start to become a problem, and then it starts to crash and have problems. And whilst the actual game runs fine, and if you do get connected to an online race, the race itself runs fine, it's everything around it, from the leaderboards pulling through to the overlay of you being able to see who's online and inviting them in. It's as if it's dragging the rest of the game down and it's not quite working properly. And I think a patch would probably solve this at a later point. But I ran into an awful lot of technical problems for something that I felt should have really been an optional extra. This game weirdly tries to force you to be online. You don't have to be, but you do lose some functionality of leaderboards and stuff like that if you're not online. But being online therefore causes problems. So there's some irony there of a game that markets itself as a throwback to the 90s being utterly hampered and crashing to the console's menu of your choice because the online functionality, the sole bit of modernity that's added to this game, doesn't work properly and is causing issues. And it's one of those kind of headline stories that just writes itself and you go, of course. Wah, wah, wah. I also have to say I rolled my eyes when I did get online and spot a season pass of logging in daily and racing online daily and doing one race so that you can earn XP to unlock paint schemes and rims for your car. And that again made me go, that could have just been in the game. And there's something about, if you're going to market your game as being a throwback to the 90s and all of this stuff, you actively make design decisions for your game to not then cross that line and be like, but we're doing this too. You can't market your game from that perspective and have your cake and eat it unless you're being very open and upfront of being, we want the best of both worlds. And I'm not sure Horizon Chase 2 sells itself like that, and therefore it felt a little bit like disingenuous when I got in, especially when that brings all of the bugs and issues that I had with the game elsewhere, when the fundamental core of what it says to be delivering works an absolute treat. The last thing I'd like to say is the soundtrack for this game is, again, an absolute banger. Barry Leach, that did the original soundtrack, is back for more, and he delivers, once again, an absolutely superb soundtrack. It's this kind of video game music that I still adore from the 80s, 90s and 2000 era, before things went a bit more cinematic and less memorable and catchy and, I guess for some people, cheesy. I would happily buy this soundtrack separately, so please release it like you did the original. Thank you. So, in conclusion, for me, Horizon Chase 2 is a great game that is slightly undermined by a lack of types of racing and this online issue that creeps into games when you try to log in initially on boot up of the game, but also when you complete a game and it tries to place you back on the online leaderboards. Crashes are frequent, and once that is solved, this will be a superb sequel and it will get 2 huge thumbs up from me. Until then, just bear in mind that you're going to have to perhaps constantly restart this game to get it up and running. But yeah, big, huge thumbs up from me. And if you've got mates that can come around for local multiplayer racing, again, this is an excellent addition to your arsenal and I'd thoroughly recommend it for that. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/Higher Plane Network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.